Hello, everyone. Hello, Stephen.
Hi, how are you?
Good. It's so nice to meet you. I saw your video. We love it.
Oh, that's wonderful, wonderful.
We're
That's
excited for you
that's
to.
my that's my youngest son, Bradley.
Oh,
Yes.
we're excited to have you share your story with our community today. And
Uh-huh.
thank you for being here.
hmm
And welcome to everyone. Happy Wednesday.
How you
Happy
doing,
Wed-
guys?
We started these lunch and learns right after the schools closed and the pandemic first hit San Diego. This is our 85th lunch and learn. So we have been doing these on a weekly basis and recording them. Hello to everybody at home as well, who is watching at a later time. We will post these on our YouTube channel.
And I think I will visit YouTube to read even more about it. I read a little bit about Autism Tree, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. I wish I lived down there so that I could be a part of it. But I will tell you, I'm probably going to steal a few of your ideas and thoughts and share them up here because it just gets them out.
I love that, Stephen. Where are you in the US?
I'm in Shasta Lake, Northern California, just north of Redding.
Wonderful.
We have about 10,000 people here. Very small, very rural. I think we only have one traffic light. If you've heard that a lot, but we only have one traffic light in the whole city, which is amazing.
I love that. Well, you're definitely welcome to steal any of our ideas. But we also love, our virtual programming as well. Has been a huge blessing during the pandemic because we can reach people in different states like never before. So that's still happening too.
Wonderful. I look forward to being a part of it. Yes, yes.
Wonderful. Well, I'll go ahead and get started since most everybody has joined. Thanks everyone for joining. It is a couple Zoom rules for those of you who are new or haven't joined in a while. Welcome back. If you have, please mute yourself when you're not speaking. We recommend speaker view for presentation. Video sharing is optional, though we love to see all your smiling faces. And please type all questions and comments into the chat. I will be moderating the chat. We will have a Q&A at the end for our guest speakers. And you can feel free to either unmute yourself during that time and ask a question. I can also read your question for you in the chat as well. A quick update from Autism Tree. For those of you who are new and don't know much about Autism Tree, we help support families impacted by autism. Everything that we do is at no cost to our kids and families. We now have reached over 690,000 people across all of our social media channels. We started tracking this when the pandemic first hit, and our online community has grown immensely on a global scale, which has been such a blessing. Like I mentioned, this is our 85th Lunch and Learn today. 84 recordings of our Lunch and Learns are uploaded on YouTube. We started these as a way to keep our community connected and our families moving forward together. We feature a different guest speaker every single week. And this has evolved into an incredible educational and resource for our families. Dana and I constantly send these to new families each day as a resource. Since January of this year, we've already coordinated 96 family events. These are both virtual and in person for our families, with 48 coming up between now and the end of the calendar year. However, we do update our calendars every single month. There's always something new, and we have about 2 to 5 events on average each week, both virtual and in person. So if you like to get involved, it's free to attend. You just need to RSVP by reaching out to our team, myself, or our program coordinator, Lupe, or you can RSVP online easy at our website or Facebook. We offered 19 programs. During the pandemic, we were able to pivot those programs virtually. Now we actually have 10 in person that we have brought back this year. So there's lots to get involved in out in the community in person.
I'm not able to talk on live at work. I'm sorry.
For those of you who are in different states or different areas in the United States, you can join our virtual events as well. We have now posted 460 impact videos on our YouTube channel, all submitted from volunteers and program directors in our community as resources, other families, parents sharing what's worked with their kids during the pandemic, and also just fun videos of activities of what you can do with your kid at home. 400 of those videos we have posted since March of 2020. So our YouTube presence has definitely grown, and these lunch and learns, I attribute a lot to these. These have been such an incredible blessing and way to meet new people. So special thank you to CalABLE, our Lunch and Learn sponsor. We're so excited to have them be our special guest today. They will be speaking about CalABLE and answering any of your questions. So I'll just skip past this part because we will definitely cover it. And one of our CalABLE ambassadors is here today. You saw me speaking with him earlier, Stephen Bell. He will share his story. They also have on their YouTube channel, on the CalABLE YouTube channel, these short videos of other CalABLE ambassadors sharing their stories. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Dana Hoff, who will be is our executive director and co-founder, and she'll do a short intro before introducing our guest speakers. Right. Dana, I'm going to ask you to unmute. You're on mute right now.
Hi, everybody. Can't believe we're in July. I hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July. And I just want to tell you how really blown away I am that we're working tirelessly in our office this summer. And I just wanted to share a few highlights with you that, you know, we've raised a generation of children and we're turning 20. So it really brings to light that we have hundreds of teenagers now that we're trying to help navigate where they're going to go. And we've just, as we know, I think everyone knows, but if you don't, we passed legislation in San Diego that is groundbreaking to have more jobs, opportunities in San Diego County. Supervisor Tara Lawson actually is the catalyst. Her child was recently diagnosed, and she really worked hard and brought autism groups together, and we were super honored to work tirelessly and have that be passed 5-0, which is really historical. In every way, they got over 800 people to comment positively on the bill, and we think that about 600 of those were Autism Tree families. So thank you to each of you that voted for this incredible legislation. Coming up right now, I've got to say our team has just done an amazing job of doing what we do, which is supporting you one family at a time. And so what's coming up is we've just given out 500 fair tickets. We love having community partners that provide things for our families for free. It's very expensive to go to the fair. And so I just need to say it for anyone that went to the fair. I'm so grateful to our fair partner. Dave Erickson is a gardener that just fell in love with Autism Tree, and he's such a gift, and he's the whole reason that we get those fair tickets. He's been working and doing this huge garden at the fair for like 15 years, and he turned it into this amazing garden to honor children and families with autism with hearts. And I just really am so thankful that we're coming out of the pandemic. I know COVID is still having all these reoccurring things, but we are trying to move slowly with you and not just through virtual programming. We have our 8th annual Bridges to the Beach coming up, which if you haven't seen the article about the camps, there's like 8, I think, autism camps in San Diego, and we're the only one that offers it for free. So these are just things that I feel are really meaningful that are going on right now and that our staff is working really, really hard on. And then when we look at our sponsor here today, CalABLE, it just means so much that we're kind of, if you look at it, we're both serving one family at a time. And I'm so thrilled to have one of the ambassadors here today and to learn from them, and just to give a warm welcome and say I'm looking forward to having our partnership grow. It's incredible the amount of work that is going on behind the scenes at Autism Tree. Everyone give extra love to Rebecca and Lupe. We've taken in over 230 new families already this year. That's a lot. It takes a lot to bring on a new family. Last year we did 260. So if you see us looking a little, worn for weather, it's just because there's a lot going on right now, but it's all so positive. And we also are just really excited about our neuroscience conference and how it's coming along. We've had over 82,000 views. If you haven't seen the neuroscience conference or been on UCTV, it's just incredible. That conference is getting so much views and recognition. Our chairman and moderator can be more excited. So I just don't want you to miss it if you haven't been on there. And with that, I just want to say how blessed we are at Autism Tree to get to know CalABLE. Last time when Anne was on, I absolutely felt so touched by her personal heart for children and families with autism. And then additionally, of course, the work that CalABLE is doing with the large California community to help provide more opportunities for families. And so learning together today is going to be extra special because we're going to be meeting, I think, for the first time, one of the CalABLE ambassadors. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to CalABLE with a huge warm welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Dana. My name is Dante Allen. I'm Executive Director for CalABLE. And I wanted to thank the Autism Tree Project Foundation. I'm just so impressed with all of the work that you're doing, the reach that you're having. It's been our experience that great things happen in San Diego. So not only is it one of the most beautiful places in the state to live, but it is also a great community. And we firmly believe that it is grassroots operations like yours that will help us to spread the word about this wonderful program with CalABLE. And we have been working on a community-driven campaign. It is essentially entitled We Are CalABLE. And we recognize that one of the best ways, the best opportunities that we have to talk about this special program and to share exactly what you can do with a CalABLE account is to really hear from the people who are already using them, who are already benefiting from CalABLE. And so we have this ambassador program. Last year was our first class in 2021. Was our first class of ambassadors, and they helped to share the story. And this year we've launched class 2 of the CalABLE ambassadors. And I'm very pleased to have one of our ambassadors with us, and you'll see that he is very knowledgeable and experienced. And so I've asked him to share a little bit about his experience with CalABLE today. And so let me introduce you to Stephen Bell. You've heard a little bit from Stephen. He is from Shasta County. He is the father of Bradley. And so before I get too much into it, because I know our time is limited, I'll let Stephen go to work. So Stephen, please tell us your story.
Thank you, Dante. I'll be glad. Thank you for having me. When Dante and Anne approached me and asked me to be part of this, I did my own research. I looked up Autism Tree, and I just was so amazed with everything that you're doing and hearing the executive director talk about the current things and the future things. It warms my heart to know that this community, this very special community of which my son is a part of, has those advocates out there. A little bit about me. I used to work for the California Highway Patrol. I retired as a chief. I retired at the age of 50. And my only point was at that time, I wanted to be able to take care of Bradley, who would have been what? That's 10 years ago. He would have been 12 at that time. And Bradley at that time was beginning to have some really significant challenges. So I needed to be the stay-at-home dad that took care of him. But I also joined the State Council for Developmental Disabilities. And at that time, I learned about this wonderful program. First, they talked about ABLE, the national program, and then they talked about CalABLE. And I just couldn't wait. I just could not wait so that Bradley could have an opportunity to have access opportunities and have his dreams realized like everybody else. I was telling Dante and Ann yesterday that up here in Northern California, we have a lot of the Native American tribes. And if you're very familiar with them, you know, they have this dream catcher, which is a wonderful souvenir. And I have one here that Bradley and I use. And I think that CalABLE is kind of sort of like that. It allows you to capture your dreams. It allows Bradley to have the things that he would not have access to without CalABLE. I think we're all very familiar with the limitations set on someone who is receiving public assistance and so forth. And that was kind of sort of one of the reasons why I started a trust for Bradley. But now with CalABLE, we're just doing so much more. And my son is aware of the CalABLE account. He wants to spend every penny every day. He wants to buy electronics. He wants to get involved in art, but at least now he has the choice. He has an option. He has access to that. So that's what I'm trying to bring forth as being a CalABLE ambassador. I did seek this opportunity. I want to spread CalABLE statewide, nationwide, worldwide, because it's an amazing program that probably, if we look at our Constitution, finally allows persons with special needs to really pursue that life of liberty, pursuit of happiness and liberty. And I think that that's part of what CalABLE is doing. Bradley and I we were actually in the process of purchasing a home because he wants to have his own home. And so we were in the process of that. And we're looking forward to doing other things as well. He wants to own a car. He can't drive, but he doesn't know that. But these are the things that CalABLE and the ability to save and put aside money are going to allow Bradley to realize down the road in the future. And so, if you can hear him, that's him in the background. He just said hi to everybody. He always comes in my room. He's got to see what Dad is doing. So, I mean, with that, I think that's a real quick, brief snapshot. I'd love to entertain any questions or comments and so forth, but that I want to say that, as Dante said, we are CalABLE, and that not only means me, it means Autism Tree, it means everybody that will view this video. We all have something to contribute and make it better for this very special population.
Stephen, thank you so much. That was exactly what we were hoping to hear from you. A few weeks ago, Ann from the CalABLE team gave a presentation about the basics of CalABLE. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit more about qualified disability expenses, and that is how can you use your account? So I'll go over a little bit of the basics. ABLE is a savings program that allows you to save money tax-free. And the money that you have in the account is protected against your benefits, the resource limits of programs like SSI or Medicaid. You can actually exceed those with a CalABLE account. But the most wonderful thing about CalABLE is that you can use the money at any time. You can pull it out and you don't pay income taxes on it. You don't pay penalties when you pull the money out, as long as you're using them to pay for qualified disability expenses. And as Stephen mentioned, ABLE is a federal act, so the federal government passed this, and CalABLE is California's version of the ABLE Act. And we've been up and running. We're not quite as old as Autism Tree, but we have been up and running since 2018. So we will hit, 4 years old this year, which is kind of a shock. I've been here the entire 4 years, but over that time, we've had people, more than 7,000 accounts opened, and $70 million in assets saved in just that short amount of time. So consider that in December, we were at zero. December of 2018, we were at zero. Today, we're at 70 million. Where could you be if you 4 years from now, if you open a CalABLE account today? So with the CalABLE account, what can you do with it? Why should you save? First and foremost, if you're receiving SSI benefits, you can save up to $100,000 in your ABLE account, and all of that money will be completely disregarded by programs like SSI. It's as if the money doesn't exist. That's a far cry from the $2,000 that you're limited to currently without an ABLE account. As I said, you can use that money at any time without taxes or penalties, as long as it's for qualified disability expenses. And often when we have that conversation, people want to know, well, what are those limitations on qualified disability expenses? And I'm here to demystify that, because there aren't very many limits. But let's start with who's eligible to have an ABLE account. First and foremost, you have to have a disability, and that disability needs to begin before your 26th birthday. And our definition of disability is the same as the Social Security Administration's. And so it can include the broad spectrum of developmental or intellectual disabilities. It can include physical disabilities. I myself am a person with a disability, a physical disability. It can even include various mental health conditions. So it is a very broad definition of disability. You're not required to be on benefits. So I'm a person with a disability. I work and earn too much to qualify for any benefits program. I have a CalABLE account, not just because I'm the executive director, but because I see it as a very flexible way of being able to save money and grow my money potentially tax-free, and then use that money anytime that I need to. And we just have to go through, if you're not on benefits, you have to go through a process called self-certification, which is really easy to do. I mentioned before ABLE, you could only have, if you were receiving SSI, about $2,000 in savings. Now you can go put into your ABLE account up to $16,000 a year, even more if you're working, and up to $100,000 in total without having your benefits impacted at all. So that is a huge, huge game changer for folks. And so, like I mentioned, whenever we give these presentations, folks want to know, well, what's the fine print? What is a qualified disability expense? And moreover, what might not be considered a qualified disability expense? And notice I said what might not be a qualified disability expense, because I've been the executive director of CalABLE for 4 years. I have not to this day discovered Social Security or the IRS turning down a qualified disability expense yet. But I can give you some guidelines on what they may consider not to be a qualified disability expense. But let me give you the formal definition before we go into some of the intricacies. So the Social Security Administration defines a qualified disability expense as any expense related to an ABLE account owner as a result of living a life with a disability that helps them to maintain or improve their health, their independence, or their quality of life. That sounds really broad, I know, and it's intentionally broad. But Social Security goes further to say that that could include things like education expenses, employment expenses, housing expenses, transportation, healthcare, and much, much more. We typically share with folks when they have questions, the Social Security's program operating manual system. It's really just a rule book that says, This is how we look at things if we're Social Security, and they have an entire section dedicated to ABLE. And so you'll know that there's no secrets, that there's no, we're gonna get you to open this account and then we're gonna pull the rug from under you. This is the guideline that they have. It comes directly from them. You're not gonna be tripped up if you follow those guidelines. So again, here are some examples of all the things that could be included in those qualified disability expense. But the three words that I want you to remember are three phrases: health, independence, quality of life. If it helps you to improve or maintain either of those three, it's a qualified disability expense. And that can include things like legal fees. It could even include death and burial expenses. If you need personal support services, one of the most popular questions we get is, could a vacation be considered a qualified disability expense? I answer the same thing every time. So this is not a funny joke to Ann or anyone else who's heard me present previously, but I've never gone on a vacation in my life that didn't improve my quality of life. So yes, a vacation could be considered a qualified disability expense where you could use your money in your ABLE account, which you've grown tax-free, and pull it out and have no problem using that to pay for vacation expenses. Now, the important thing to know is that it's not illegal to use a CalABLE account for a non-qualified disability expense, but just know that you may be subject to regular income tax for any growth that your account has had since you've opened it. Plus you'll get a 10% federal tax penalty and a 2.5% state tax penalty. So we highly recommend that when you use your CalABLE account, you always use it for qualified disability expenses. We also recommend that you keep good records, meaning you keep receipts and notes on what you purchased when you use that, because we're not going to make the judgment on whether this is a qualified disability expense or not. The folks who will, the IRS, or maybe even Social Security when you go through a recertification if you're on benefits, they'll want to know you have this ABLE account, you've used this money, how'd you use it? So please keep those records for it. And like I said, let me talk about housing a little bit, because this is an important thing, because there is one caveat on when you use your ABLE account for housing expenses, it needs to occur within a certain time frame. And so housing expenses are fairly broad, but that can include things like mortgage, rent, any insurance that you pay for your home. It could be property taxes. It could be utilities like heating or fuel, gas, electricity, water, sewer, garbage removal. When you use your ABLE account to pay for these types of housing expenses, you're required to withdraw the money and make the payment within the same calendar month. If you don't do it within that same time, it could trip you up with your benefits, where they'll say, oh, you had excess resources for a small amount of time. So we want you to avoid that and know that, and it's only with housing expenses. With any other expense not related to housing, your time frame to actually withdraw the money and use it it can be up to 6 months. So you don't have to worry about this within the same calendar month time frame. It's something that I want to make sure that you're aware of. But also know that in the case of where an individual with an ABLE account is receiving help from their family to pay for housing, you're familiar with the in-kind contribution reduction for SSI benefits. So if you're taking money out of your pocket to help pay for an adult child's to help pay their rent, their SSI benefit is being reduced because they're receiving an in-kind contribution. Well, if you have an ABLE account, and instead of paying that money directly to rent, you're putting that money in the ABLE account and then using that ABLE account to pay for the rent, that in-kind contribution doesn't exist anymore, because any contribution to an ABLE account is not counted as income. It's not counted as an in-kind contribution. So you could, just by opening an ABLE account, boost the SSI benefit that an individual receives just by eliminating that in-kind contribution deduction that happens. I think that's about $130 a month, which is a significant amount, especially for SSI recipients. So just one tip there. The best practice for record keeping is keep a receipt wherever you are. Whenever you make a purchase using money from your ABLE account, write down on that receipt what you bought, and keep that in a safe place. Any notes that say, hey, let's say I bought an iPad using money from my ABLE account, and I'm going to use this for monitoring my blood sugar. Those are, good opportunities to say, hey, I'm using this as a qualified disability expense. And so when somebody shows me, or when someone asks me, I can show them that I have this record of, this is what I bought it for. This is what I bought, and this is what I bought it for. Now, the IRS recommends folks keep their records for 3 years from the date that from the date of purchase or when they filed their income tax, and that you can organize the receipts by date so you can easily find them. Many of us are scanning things with our phone or scanning things to our computer, so we always have a digital file as a backup. That way you have less paper around. So those are all great recommendations if you're keeping records about your qualified expenses. I know that there are questions about, well, what might not be considered a qualified disability expense? I can give you a couple of examples. The purchase of anything illegal wouldn't be considered a qualified disability expense, no matter, and I'll let you use your imagination on what those illegal purchases could be. The same goes for if you're buying gifts for someone else. And so the ABLE account is meant for the beneficiary, the person with the disability. And so anything that helps to benefit them, even if it's not for their sole benefit, it would still be considered a qualified disability expense. But you can't say, well, it helps me and improves my quality of life to be able to give gifts to my aunts or uncles or cousins. I think the IRS may argue with you if that's what you're trying to use your ABLE account for, and they'll suggest that that may not be a qualified disability expense. And I don't know about you, but in my experience, anytime I've argued with the IRS usually wins. So again, that's just a recommendation on how to consider using your ABLE account. We do have an 800 number if you want to give us a call and ask us questions. You can also send us an email. It's open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, where you can talk to us at any time. With that, I know it was very quick, but I wanted to make sure that we could answer some questions if there's still time. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, ATPF, for allowing us to be here today. Really appreciate the time. So,
thank you, Dante. And with that, I will open it up to any questions anyone has. Feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand, and I can call on you. We did have some questions in the chat, so I'll read those out if anyone doesn't mind, just so we can have those on the recording for the future. Yadira asked, is there a yearly fee? How much? And also, is this account FDIC insured? And Anne, thank you for answering all of the questions in the chat. She said there is an account maintenance fee of $37 annually for the FDIC insured option account. If you have investments that are additional fees or an underlying maintenance fee and a state administrative fee, these fees are based on the balance of the account. And you can visit the CalABLE website for additional information.
And we should say that even with those additional fees, it's really affordable. Let's say if you had an account balance of $3,000, if you were investing, the maximum that could cost you in a single calendar year is about $52. So, right around $5 a month to manage that account for an entire year.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's very doable. Thank you, Dante. Jeff also asked, do you guys have a training program to teach individuals about what pays and what doesn't pay? And then Anne answered, CalABLE uses the categories provided in the POMS, P-O-M-S.
Yeah.
Yes.
And while we don't offer a quote unquote training program, we do have monthly webinars where we try to give the basics and go into a little bit more specifics. Today is a really brief lesson on what we can talk about, but we've had some really detailed conversations to really try and expand your knowledge base on what you can and can't use your account for.
Perfect. And also put in a link in the chat, and I will include it in the recap email to answer Lisa's questions in the chat. She said, will there be a recording of this presentation? Will the PowerPoint be available? Yes and yes. CalABLE generously provided the PowerPoint to me, so I will send it out to everyone who registered and to our whole database. You will receive a recap email with the link to this recording on our YouTube channel. You can also visit our YouTube channel and find it under our Lunch and Learn playlist. And we will provide the PowerPoint, and all of the links and probably all of these questions and the answers in the chat will include in the recap email as well.
Yeah, and let me just add too that CalABLE has a YouTube channel, so you can go and visit and view our previous webinars, as well as you can join us live every month when we host. We have one coming up on, I believe it's July 20th, and that one will be looking at, can having a CalABLE account improve your health? And so again, we try to get into a little bit more specifics as we talk about these things.
Thank you. All right, another question from Susan. If an individual doesn't receive SSI, but they have an autism diagnosis and a regional center consumers, are they eligible for CalABLE? And even if the individual is high functioning and attending college?
Yes, you're absolutely eligible for CalABLE. Again, being on benefits is not a requirement of having an ABLE account. And even the level of your functionality is not a judgment factor. You need to have a qualifying condition, without ever being qualified for any benefits program, you have to go through a self-certification process where you attest that you have a disability. That disability likely began before your 26th birthday, and it's expected to last a year or longer.
Perfect. And what are the pros and cons of this versus a special needs trust? It's a good question.
We get that question often. And typically the question is, well, which is better? Should I get a special needs trust or an ABLE account? And in many cases, it's not necessarily an either or proposition. Sometimes they can work very well in tandem. But if you want to talk specifically about pros and cons, so a special needs trust is a great way that offers very similar benefits to an ABLE account. You can actually have a savings that doesn't directly impact your ability to receive benefits like SSI or Medicaid. The challenge with a special needs trust is it can be an expensive proposition to set up, right? You're required to have an attorney do that. You need to have a trustee. So the money, even though it's used for the benefit of the person with a disability, it's not really their money. The money sits in a trust that doesn't belong to that person. It's for the benefit of that person. With an ABLE account, you can set it up yourself. It only takes about 20 minutes. It's very inexpensive to operate. I gave you the example of if you had an ABLE account with $3,000 in it, The most that would cost you is about $52 a year. The money in the ABLE account belongs to the person with the disability. And so it's their money and they can use it how they choose. You don't need someone else to give you permission to use that money. And the person with the disability, if they're able to and willing to, they can manage their own money and make their own decisions about how they use that money. So less expensive to set up than a special needs trust. It's more flexible on what you can use the money for. Again, there are certain things, if you use the money in a special needs trust to pay for things like rent, that could result in rent or food. Those things could result in a reduction of your SSI benefits. That's not the case with an ABLE account. So there are pluses and minuses to either. One of the cons I would say to an ABLE account is you're limited to how much you can put into an ABLE account on an annual basis. So right now that limit, the annual contribution limit is $16,000. That does change from year to year. But if you are receiving a large inheritance or something, you wouldn't be able to put all of that money into an ABLE account. You can only put up to $16,000.
Wonderful. And another question from the chat. Oh, well, can you have both a special needs trust and a CalABLE account at the same time? Great.
Absolutely, you can. Nothing would limit that.
Great. David asked, if we live in low income housing, but our housing agency needs to check our income every year to see if we qualify, does CalABLE savings account count as income resource for low income housing? Not sure if CalABLE will affect our low income housing.
It does not. And HUD actually issued guidance that said they will follow the intent of the ABLE Act, which is that any money that is put into an ABLE account will not be counted as income or as a resource. When it's pulled out of the ABLE account, again, it won't be counted as income or resource. Any contributions that you receive from third parties are not considered income or resource that would impact your housing subsidies.
Good to know. Anne is also typing in the chat. She says CalABLE has webinars that include special needs trusts, QDEs. What does that stand for?
Qualified disability expenses.
And CalABLE 101. So you can check out their YouTube channel for that. I'll include that link in the recap email to their YouTube channel. And there's another link. Okay, great. Lisa asked an example. Can you place $16K in the CalABLE account and then the rest of the inheritance into a trust?
You can.
Wonderful. Great. And Lisa, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to. What is the number again for more questions? Oh, can you show the contact slide again, Dante?
Yes, I can do that. The number though is 833 CalABLE. And so hopefully that's pretty simple.
All right, I have a question then. This is Lisa. Hello.
Hi, Lisa.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you again for this wonderful talk. So my question then is and I'm sorry because I came in really late into the talk, but when I was asking about the pros and cons between an ABLE account versus a trust, you said for example, you can have both. The example was the inheritance winner. If you put 16K, let's say, which is the max limit of the ABLE account, then you can place the rest of the inheritance into a trust, correct?
Correct.
And there's no limit on that trust, so you can actually have both.
Correct. I'm not an expert on special needs trust, so I can't say that there are absolutely no limits, but to my knowledge, there are no limits.
So would it be then better than, let's say if you do have, an adult now that has special needs and autism and disabilities, in terms of life planning and independence and all that, to establish an ABLE account in addition to our trust, because the ABLE account is only at a 16K limit. And as we know, we live in Southern Cal, that doesn't go very far.
Yeah, so so that limit is an annual limit, so you can actually build your ABLE account significantly higher than that. If you want to maintain benefits, you can actually save up to $100,000 in an ABLE account, and none of that is counted as a resource against your benefits. If you're not worried about maintaining benefits, you can actually put a lot more into an ABLE account. You can put up to $500,000, $529,000 in an ABLE account, and it can still continue to grow even after you can no longer contribute to an ABLE account. So there are a couple of things that motivate folks, and I hear from parents quite a bit, and they say, you know, that no matter what, even if I set up a special needs trust, we can have it where the special needs trust is used to fund the ABLE account. So you could put a certain amount. You could put the full $16,000 a year into the ABLE account, and then have the full flexibility to use that the money that came from the trust in the ABLE account in more ways than you could if you were taking it from a special needs trust. And then you have to do less to sort of justify each time you want to take money out of the ABLE account. So, so there is an opportunity for both that could work very well. So my advice, and this is only coming from Dante, not from the state of California, but they work very well together. And so if you have the opportunity, I would suggest considering opening an ABLE account.
Like you mentioned, it looks like cost is the only kind of prohibitive factor between the two. If you had to choose, meaning, you know, like $60 versus, I don't know, hundreds of dollars. You said you probably have to have an attorney set up the trust, and then you have to go to court or do other, you know, process and procedure filings.
I wouldn't say that that's the only challenge. I think that there are further limitations on what you can use the money from a special needs trust for without impacting your benefits. I think there's the matter of having that trustee and who will serve as the trustee to make those decisions, because the individual, the person who the trust is for, is not able to access those things. So there are a couple of additional challenges, but again, they are things that work very well in tandem together. And so there could be ongoing costs potentially if you have a trust, the same way that there are annual fees for an ABLE account.
And what did you say were the actual qualifications and responsibilities for a trustee for an ABLE account?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
What are the qualifications and responsibilities of a trustee, for example, in an ABLE account?
So are you asking who's eligible for an ABLE account, or?
Yeah, because my understanding, so an ABLE account is set for an individual, of course, that is not able to necessarily access it and take care of it and monitor it, correct? And so
No. So an ABLE account can be accessed and maintained by the beneficiary, again, if they are both willing and able to manage their own funds. It can also be managed by what we call an authorized legal representative if the individual does not want to or does not have the ability to manage their own account. And so the folks who can become an authorized legal representative are a parent or legal guardian, a conservator of the estate, or someone with power of attorney over the financial matters of the beneficiary. And then that person can become an authorized legal representative and have controlling access to the money that goes into the ABLE account. But the beneficiary, the person with the disability, is always the owner of the ABLE account. And that's one of the biggest differences between an ABLE account and a special needs trust is, again, that special needs trust, even if it works to help that beneficiary, that's not their money. That money is in a trust for their benefit. The money in an ABLE account belongs to the person with the disability or special need.
Okay, I see. And is there a certain age requirement for the ABLE account? You probably went through that, but is it like, do you have to be 18 or can it be younger than?
No, an ABLE account can be open when the beneficiary is at any age, as long as the onset of that disability began before their 26th birthday.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, I just need to make sure so they don't necessarily be an adult. Like if you have a child that's a regional center client, that also has an autism or intellectual disability diagnosis, then, but they're only, they're only in elementary school, you can still set one up for them.
Absolutely.
Okay, and it can for the remainder of their lives. Got it. I understand that they're
Yes.
still in control and it is for them and so forth. It's just, again, if you've got an individual that pretty much for their lifetime, they'll never ever be able to access and understand and monitor their own accounts. So I just want to make sure that can the authorized legal representative be, of course, you said like a sibling or parent, and that
It-
can be also for life, possibly.
Yes, and it can be. So the list that I gave you, parent, guardian, conservator, those are at the top of the hierarchy, but it could also include siblings, spouses, really anyone of the beneficiaries choosing, as long as there is no one else that would be higher on the hierarchy, either willing or able to serve as the authorized legal representative.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wonderful. That was a great discussion. Thank you, Lisa.
Great.
And thank you.
Yeah.
John. Is there any age limit to apply to a special needs trust? So that is a different topic.
I'd have to refer that to a trust attorney. That's sort of beyond my expertise.
Yes. If you'd like to get in touch with one, I'm sure we have somebody in Autism Tree's network that we can refer you to, David. If you want to reach out to me, I'll put my information in the chat as well.
Can I ask one more question?
Go for it, Lisa.
Sorry. Like you mentioned I asked the question about tax benefits of ABLE accounts, and you were talking about, for example, some of the equipment and so forth. How about like besides medical treatment, you said like education. Can you kind of go through more details on what that could possibly be, like medical, like I was looking at medical treatment, they've got transportation, assistive technology, housing. I can understand that really very much well. You said legal administrative fees. So the ABLE account could even pay for itself, for example, to administer the fees for the ABLE account.
You can use the ABLE account as a qualified disability expense, yes. And so remember, the litmus is anything that helps to maintain or improve your health, independence, or quality of life. So that could be education expenses, could include things like tuition, books, computer, assistive technology. It could include transportation to and from school. It could include really the list is so broad that it's kind of hard to say, well, here are the things that that it would include, because it can be just about anything.
For example, it's housing. Can you explain that?
Yes.
You said so it can be like rental to like mortgage to
you
purchasing.
can use an ABLE account to pay for rent. You can use it to pay for the down payment of a house. You can use it to pay for mortgage. You can use it to pay for your mortgage insurance. You can use it to pay for your property taxes, for your utility bills. Again, the list is so long and broad. The thing that I would hope that you take away from this is that there's not trickery going on here, that when we say that there is a broad definition, it truly is meant to say that these accounts are very usable. There's not a fine print that says you can use it, but you can only use it for these few things.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's good to know about the housing, like specifically, and then the education, of course, transportation, of course, just trying to fit every aspect of their lives, to be successful and to be independent.
Yes,
Sure
and that was the intent of the ABLE Act.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Dante. This is Yoli. Is the CalABLE like a bank? I mean, I'm used to going to the bank to withdraw money. How do people access their CalABLE money?
That's a fantastic question, and it's similar to a bank. It's an online program, so you sign up for CalABLE, and the way that you access the money in your ABLE account is very similar to if you do any kind of online banking. So you can transfer funds electronically. You can request that CalABLE cut a check and send it to you as the beneficiary or as the legal representative, or to any payee that you designate, or you can transfer money to, say, your linked checking or savings account and then pay for things out of those accounts. So it's really flexible. If you went to a bank and said, hey, I want to open Bank of America's CalABLE account, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. CalABLE is only offered through the state of California. You have to go to our website to sign up and access your account.
Thank you.
Perfect. We have about 5 minutes left. If anyone else has any last minute questions for Dante or Anne or anyone.
Or Stephen, I think he's still here.
Yes, Stephen.
I'm still here.
Wonderful. What are some of the other things that you have used CalABLE account for, Stephen? You and your son.
Well, we haven't used it in a little over a year because we were saving up the money. We were letting it accumulate because of Bradley's desire to have his own house. But we have used it for electronic devices that help with his social learning, with his accessibility, with his speaking and communication and stuff like that. And now that the house is on hold, I'm probably going to look at it to improve his quality of life. He's quite the artist, and I'm looking for some teachers and instructions so that we can do it not only online, but in person to further his talent, his gifts, and his hobby.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Chantel Jefferson, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Hi, we love art. This is to the father of Bradley. Is that the right name? Does he show his drawings or his art on any type of media? We'd love to see it.
He doesn't. The most recent one was I was told it looks very much like a sketch of a woman about to be married. It was from the back. It was amazing. I've shared that, but no, he doesn't have a platform. Not yet. And in fact, now that I'm sharing this, I do need to get him a table, a chair, some lamps, and so forth in his room so that he has better access to that stuff. So I will share. I'll send something to Autism Tree shortly, and maybe we can share it that way. But that's what he loves to do.
Thank you. That's awesome. We
You're
love
very
art.
welcome.
I'm trying to get my daughter to. She enjoys art, but just to be focused with it. So that's awesome that he's excelling in that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that. Yes, please do share, Stephen. And we'd love to see a picture of him as well.
Of Bradley?
Yeah. Or him.
He shared that.
Wonderful. Well, we're just about time. And so thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Dante, for being so thorough in your questions and your answers to so many questions. I'm so excited to welcome you and Anne back again next week for a part 2. So if you didn't get your questions answered today, sign up for next week and we can go through more details then. But I will send out a recap email with all of those resources, everything that we covered today to everyone who registered, or you can just contact me directly as well. My contact information is on our website. So I'd love to take a group picture. It's a tradition before we go to take a group picture with everyone who attended. So if you'd like to turn on your cameras, now is the time. And I will do a countdown to the picture. All right.
There's Bradley.
Hi.
Oh, hi, Bradley. Nice to meet you. I love it. Okay, he's going to be part of our picture. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, cheese. Wonderful. Thank you so much,
Thank
everyone.
you, everybody.
Thank you. All right. Bye now.
Take care, guys.
All right. Thank you,
Thank,
Stephen.
thank you.
Thank you.
There,
Enjoy
bye-bye.
the rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Becca, stay on with me.
Okay, great. We'll see everyone next week.